guys, welcome back. Today I wanted to, well, first and foremost, I wanted to dedicate this to all the beautiful babies out there who have tattoos and are really tan, all of which I am not. So let's hop into this question, okay? I wanted to go over why are tattoos permanent and why do you lose your tan? You know, I always wanted to know, like, you know, what the heck? Why do you lose your tan? You know? So let's just quickly review the integumentary system, and I really wanted to go over a couple main differences between your epidermis and your dermis, okay? So, first and foremost, let's just draw a line, just kind of distinguishing the two. Okay, so over here, you've got your dermis, okay? Your dermis is, what's interesting is I always thought, you know, it's your skin, right? Like, it's all the same, right? There's no difference between it. Actually, it is a little different. It's actually very different. So your dermis is connective tissue. Okay? Now let's juxtapose that with your epidermis. Epi means on, right? On your dermis, above your dermis, okay? Your epidermis is actually under the histological category of epithelium. You might ask, hey Elliot, why the heck is this important? You know, are these minor details? No, they're not. They're actually, it really illustrates this point. And the biggest thing to take away from this is that your dermis is vascular. Okay, you have really good blood supply to your dermis. However, and what's so weird, your epithelium is avascular. A means without blood supply. It doesn't get it does get some perfusion, but it doesn't have its own direct blood supply. Why that is important is when your cells are replicating on the bottommost portion of your epidermis, there's 5 layers. Let's forget about the details right now. It doesn't really matter in this example. But what's progressively happening is you get blood supply here. Okay, you have a pretty decent blood supply, and you know, you kind of just draw this out. It's kind of the intensity. Notice, get the point that like you get really good tissue perfusion here. And as you start going out towards the outer part of your epidermis, I mean, there's no nutrient supply. So what that does is it leads to a process called desquamation. This is the most important point that I'm going to make. Okay, it's called desquamation. And that's basically the process of your epidermis, the cells in your epidermis dying. And they just basically flatten out and you shed them. Most of the dust in your house right now is probably epidermal cells, just sloughed off skin cells. And why that's important is this process of desquamation and why you lose your tan takes about 40 to 60 days. You're turning over cells in your epidermis, and everyone's a little different, but about 40 to 60 days, right? So if you're tan right at the end of September or whatever, and you go into school, you know, you're a white guy like me before you know it, and that takes about 40 to 60 days. Why tattoos are permanent? Well, let's take a look at this. These cells are dying progressively. They become keratinized. They just slough off and die. They're dead cells. Your outermost portion is dead cells. Your dermis is not, right? So if you're going to tattoo, what are you going to do? Here's a needle. Let's just draw this as a needle. Or a guitar string if you're in prison. Just kidding, but really. Here's your needle, okay? The tattoo, the needle, repetitively goes into your dermis. It bypasses your epidermis, right? The cells that are constantly dying, turning over. It goes into your dermis. I won't get into the details, but it kind of promotes an inflammatory response that traps the pigment. And what that does is that this, you know, these cells, remember, this is connective tissue. This is vascular tissue. It's very different. The pigment stays here, okay? You bypass the outer portion, which is what's affected by UV light, where you tan. Tanning happens in the epidermis, right? And you slough that off, but you bypass that, and you basically keep the pigment localized in your dermis. So anyways, I just wanted to go over that today. Basically, the process of desquamation takes about 40 to 60 days, and the difference between your epidermis and your dermis, which I always thought was, you know, the same thing. I thought it was the same tissue type. And I just thought it would be a really good example of going over the differences and how your skin cells slough off. Alright guys, have a great day. I'll see you next time.